Buddy, I'm so excited to be here with two of the foremost thinkers. Um, they're laughing. No, it's for real. One of the beautiful things of LinkedIn is how you get just to meet and interact with these really advanced practitioners and people who are honing their craft to kind of the highest level. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to Aubrey Bergauer and Kirk Schmidt. I'll let you both of you introduce yourselves. If you just want to do a really quick explanation of your background, what brought you here, and then we'll dive into the crypto for fundraising. So, Aubrey, you want to go first?
All right. Hey, everybody. If I haven't met you yet, Aubrey Bergauer, as Louis said. And the very quick bio is I work in the performing arts. Most people know me, I think, from my time as executive director of the California Symphony. We doubled the audience, quadrupled the donor base, really changing the way we do business in the arts. And so that's how I kind of became known by a lot of people. Now I serve arts organizations of all disciplines across the country and beyond. And am known for being iterative. Some people call me innovative. So crypto and the intersection with nonprofits and the arts is of particular interest to me.
Wonderful. Welcome, Aubrey. It's so great to have you here today. And Kirk.
So I currently work for an AI company called Wisely. I am the product manager, but I come from quite a few years of working with nonprofits. Started as a database analyst with my IT background, and then started to get into fundraising and to I've consulted over 75 charities in Canada and the US, and my most recent job before this, I was director of operations for a $65 million charity. So I'm very familiar with all of the inner workings of charities. But perhaps my most useful trait in this is the fact that I have a degree in mathematics, and that I love doing math and reading math papers. Like I have actually read the Bitcoin white paper. Uh, so
So
you know,
did it say who the mystery guy was there or no?
it has never. People don't quite know. So
it's like the Enigma variations, Aubrey. There's a musical connection to everything.
Yes, and oh my God, Enigma for sure. All right, love it.
Hey, speaking of technical white papers, I'm not sure we're broadcasting. So
no, it's saying waiting for broadcast.
Yeah, so that's ours.
This is the issue I had the other day.
Yeah. Okay, and Aubrey, it says it's linked to your LinkedIn. Is there a way to check if it's broadcasting on yours?
Let me see here. Looking. Yes, it is. Yeah. It's working on mine.
Well, shall we just give people that link?
Yeah, let's do that.
I wonder. I hope I didn't screw up the stream by connecting it to mine.
No, you did exactly what you were supposed to do. Okay. This is appalling. We're quitting. Yeah, waiting for broadcast.
Okay, so let's see here. So copy link to my post. All right, we got a few people watching, so thanks for hanging with us. I can see that. Yeah, I see it. It says Sean, broadcasting on Aubrey, says Joel's. Okay.
Oh, so they're seeing it on yours. So Aubrey, if you want to, there we go.
There's the link. Okay. All right. Joel, Sean, hang on just a moment. We're working on getting this for others. Yeah, this is, while you're doing this, Louis, this is the problem I had. Okay, 2 times ago, I did the entire stream. Never knew it wasn't broadcasting. So thank goodness we caught this right now. Last week, I did the stream and it was this issue where I was like, we checked a couple of minutes after the stream started and it wasn't broadcasting. And we were like sending people to a new link where it was broadcasting. So I don't know anybody has any idea what's going on with Restream and its connection to LinkedIn on the back end. This is very frustrating.
Well, this is the performing arts here, right here. Okay, so we all have a performing arts background. Kirk is an actor. He just did the closing curtain on a show. and I was a violist. It's, I know that's barely a musician, but and Aubrey ran art organizations. So there's a very
There we
nice.
go. All in the arts to some
We
degree.
can put on a show. Yeah.
So everybody who's listening, if you have a musical or performing arts background, please chat it in. We know it's not related to crypto for fundraising, but we'll dive right into that. While you think of that, did it count that I played the xylophone in kindergarten? Yes, it did count.
Yes, it counts.
Exactly. So Kirk is going to give us the kind of generic technical explanation of what crypto is, and maybe we'll start teeing that into what it can do for fundraising, essentially.
Sure. So I don't really have a plan for this. So as people have questions, feel free to ask. I do have a video that Lewis can put in the link, where I used Lego, which are the ultimate blocks, to talk about how the blockchain fundamentally works. Big thing with any currency, not just cryptocurrency, is that it is the belief of value that gives it value. If everybody tomorrow decided that a $5 bill is no longer worth $5, it would completely devalue. And so cryptocurrency, from the perspective of it runs on belief, is just as true of any currency. But cryptocurrency runs in an interesting fashion, where you are using relatively complicated mathematics to find new money. And so that's why you hear about things like mining or staking or things like that. And there's a bunch of this mathematics being done in the background in order to contain the supply, because we know that there have been countries that have just randomly printed a whole bunch of money and devalued their currency. Lewis and I talk a lot about economics, so like this is like economics land. But the idea is that as new currency is created and as transactions are created, it is being validated by computers across the world. Now, this can be a good thing or a bad thing. There are ways to attack cryptocurrency that do not exist with fiat money.
What is fiat money? Kirk, what is fiat money?
Fiat money would be paper money.
Okay. That's not backed by like gold or something, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So that you have to think of it as being something different. And as we start talking about things like NFTs and how they're useful, it's really I found it really useful to explain to people that NFTs and crypto work very much like derivatives markets in existing like if you're more familiar with that type of thing. So thinking about like options trading is actually relatively helpful in understanding that there is going to be potentially implicit value and explicit value with these types of products. Like let's say for example, a government found a bunch of new land, and they made it that if anybody goes in and works on the land and tills the land, the government's going to grant you a portion of the land. And you might believe that a grand city will be created and that property will be worth a lot of money. So you try to sell it at a large value. Maybe somebody tries to buy it at a large value because they think there's going to be all of this great property valuation. The land is worth something. You could probably grow stuff on the land. There's an opportunity with that land, but there's also the speculation. And so the speculation is really what is driving a lot of this market right now. As we get into NFTs allow you to create that explicit value within the structure. So maybe you create, like I could basically build an NFT that is a contract that I will give Lewis $5. There's an explicit value to that. It is worth $5. He might sell it to somebody else. Um, and then the question is, does that NFT gain value in the speculation? Does it gain value in the time product of that money? So so that's where I kind of talk more in those derivatives. So if you've ever worked with property markets, option markets, we won't talk about mortgage-backed securities because that's a sore spot for some people. But like a lot of those derivative type markets are very similar to how crypto fundamentally works. It's basically this implied value built by market speculation, but it is backed by this technology that allows us to go back and verify every transaction. It is relying on the computer systems to verify these verify these transactions, and really it's about the technology and the decentralization of it that gives it this kind of interesting property. So that, I mean,
Awesome.
without going too far into things, let's start with that.
Aubrey, how did you explain it? Because you did a fantastic, was it a webinar or kind of a panel discussion on this? What was kind of the concise way to explain crypto for people?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, Kirk hit it for sure. So I think, I mean, decentralized is important. Anybody who cares about, I mean, that's a very different model than our banking system today. It's the opposite, right? We believe in the Fed. As Kirk was saying, this is a belief system we hold in the value of our currency. We believe in the Fed and give them responsibility to parameters on how we spend and invest money as a nation, right? We're going through that right now. They just increased interest rates last week. Okay, we know that. That's our normal way of life. Crypto, as Kirk said, really decentralizes that, which is a difficult concept for a lot of us because it's so different than what we've known our whole entire lives. But if you're thinking decentralized means, so then what's the governing body? How are rules implemented? Like, that's not true. There are rules in place, and there's so much, and I'm not a super technical person, but there's so much on the back end attached to these currencies. And especially when we get to NFTs and the T is the token, like the back end code that verifies that product. Like, it actually is very reliable, very authenticated. So anybody who has those kind of questions, this is where the technology side of it actually brings legitimacy to this. Now it is a bit of the Wild West because so much is being discovered right now. And I think that combination of ideas is also a mind shift, a little challenging to reconcile, or at least it has been for me, this idea of new currency, new way of thinking about decentralized, call it banking, call it investing, call it whatever. And I like all those things. And yet it's hard for me to think of, like, why isn't every question I have answered right now? It's because it's new. So I don't know if that really adds any clarity to what Kirk said.
Does this mean that the rules is just that they exist in code? Is that what it is? Am I understanding correctly? And
that's
so there's
no
one person kind of saying, okay.
Yeah. And so we have, I mean, you guys chime in, but how is this currency mined? It's supercomputers. It's, and that's where some people, I'll jump to like the environmental concern. People think, why is so much energy being spent to mine this currency? But that's shifting. Everybody should know that they're shifting the way some of these currencies are mined. Bitcoin, I think, gets all the attention so much of the time, but there are other currencies, Ether, moving to proof of stake work.
Proof of stake.
I start getting confused. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Kirk.
I mean, I'm gonna see if this works for a moment.
Okay. In the meantime, I'm gonna improve the quality of this conversation.
Oh gosh, Lewis.
Lewis, I've shared my screen on the system. See if you can display it for a moment. I'm just gonna talk about this.
We don't want to see your Amazon groceries.
Yeah. So this right now is mining.
Wow.
So I mean, I'm a gamer. I've got a gaming graphics card, so I might as well, make some money on the side, right? But effectively, what's happening is my computer is being given this problem to solve, which is known as hashing. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to find a hash. So we're trying to add random numbers to things to find a hash that makes this a valid block on what is here the Ethereum network. So I'll not scare people with that anymore. but effectively what's happening is my computer has to is attempting to find this block, and if I were to find this block, I'm working with what's called a mining pool. So basically, everybody tries to find the block, and then everybody gets rewarded for
Yeah,
trying.
because the problems have gotten like so difficult, right? That you need to join forces with other people, right?
Yeah, like the chance of me finding an Ethereum with my computer is nearly impossible at this point. Although there's been some really interesting news stories lately about small technology systems finding blocks. But like the whole idea of finding blocks is really just trying to find a random number such that when you hash it, which is basically a mathematical way of
Okay.
manipulating data, that you end up with a block that follows a whole bunch of rules.
Mhm.
Um, and so once that's found, then you're rewarded with coin. That is proof of work, and that's where the environmental concerns come in, because um,
Takes a lot of
you've
electricity.
got however many graphics cards and hashing systems running throughout the world. It's taking up a lot of power. Proof of stake, again, just to go back into like stock market land. Proof of stake is like getting dividends in a company. You basically own this stock, and you are putting this, like, you're basically not selling your stock, and by
Mhm.
not selling your stock, you are being granted dividends. And so the proof of stake model requires less computing resources, because are only you're only you're granting the ability to find more coin based on having coin and based on having invested. So to
Okay.
put it in perspective, when Ethereum goes proof of stake later this year, you will need, I think it's 32 Ethereum in order to stake, and basically can't do anything with it at that point.
How much is that in dollars right now?
And it's about $100,000
Yeah.
right now. Like
Wow.
that's
Wow.
you're paying to play at that point.
Okay, so let's take a step back and we'll explore, crypto, NFT, and all that. But I think we've had a really good look into kind of the back end, no? And Kirk has shown us actually what it looks like to mine Ethereum, and he's going to give us some at the end of this conversation. It's a joke. No, 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 no. But what is the psychology of people? Like, I think this is giving us, and this is a little bit more of a fundraising conversation, right? What is the psychology of people that have gone like really deep into this, have maybe made a lot of money? Is that like I think I have a feeling that this is like a particular model of person, of donor, that we should be thinking about, and we're probably ignoring. Do any of you have experience with this, or have heard about, or just have a sense of who tends to be this crypto
Yeah.
rich person?
I asked about this in this webinar link that Lewis dropped in the chat. I asked my panel this. I was like, why is this even a thing? Like, what is happening here? And like sort of this question, what's the profile of a person? Because we think of a donor and we don't necessarily think of like this super tech savvy person, but we have to challenge that stereotype of who our donors can be, right? Yeah. So this, I'll tell you what the panel said to me, and like Kirk, you please weigh in on what your thoughts on this are. But part of it is the newness. It's modern, it's trendy, like there is that element. So there is definitely a profile of a person who is interested, especially, this is not the only truth, but I live in San Francisco Bay Area. So we have a lot of tech people who are, yeah, it's like, it's interesting, it's shiny right now. Okay, so there's that. It's COVID accelerated this. I would say that's the next big sort of thing at play here, is that we know the pandemic accelerated so many trends across so many industries, and this is one of them. We were, for so many months, required to live our lives 100% virtually, basically. And so when you have a currency that's 100% virtual, digital, those two things, it just really accelerated the adoption rate of crypto and NFTs. And so there's that. And then I would say a third, this gets more into, I was going to say it gets more into NFTs, but I guess it's true for cryptocurrency itself. But what I was going to say, the third sort of thing that comes to my mind is digital currency doesn't deteriorate. So I'm not trying to say like the dollars in our wallet deteriorate, but when you get into NFTs and especially into the arts world, like physical products can deteriorate. So, oh, Adrian's so nice. My energy. Yeah, it's 9 a.m. here and I'm like on caffeine super Monday morning here. So thank you for that, Adrian. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is this idea that it doesn't deteriorate, that to me is a very interesting sort of third reason at play. So when I start thinking of building a donor profile, I'm thinking of, no, this is not necessarily our bread and butter donors. It doesn't exclude them, but it sort of opens things up, because this is what I found when I'm talking to not just performing arts, but any arts people on this. This has got the exact question of like, who would be interested, especially when we talk about product as an NFT, who would be interested in this? And we have to think it's not necessarily our core audience. There are plenty of people in this space. So it just opens things up, doesn't exclude from what we already have. So there are some thoughts from me on this as we start to think about who and what's the profile of a potential donor here.
Kirk, any thoughts?
Well, it's going to change, right? Like right now, that the type of people who have, Ethereum miners running on their computer 24/7, like things are going to change as more people invest in it, as more people trust in it. The NFT market is going to be really interesting because right now, what people associate with NFTs are mostly the ape pictures. And that's going to change over time. NFT is going to very quickly become a very public way to have contracts or
Exactly.
some sort of,
This is where I get super
right.
excited. Sorry to interject, but I want to come back to that if we
We'll
can.
get to NFTs in a sec, I promise.
Yeah. So I think that fulfillment piece and that the what people are going to tokenize is going to change, and that's going to change the profile a lot as well. So like there's going to be a level of like, if you as a charity are just getting into crypto and NFTs and you're like, we're going to go after the tech crowd, it's only going to be short-lived, because and there will be some flow from there, but I feel like the donor profile is going to move very quickly, probably a lot faster than the normal generational giving gap that we're used to in fundraising. And so it's going to involve being like, quite likely a lot of charities are going to need somebody who understands the existing trends in the NFT market, similar to how we have social media people, or similar to how we've adopted these new roles over time. Somebody's going to need to know what's going on, because it is going to change quickly.
Yeah, and that's how, I mean, I've seen some of those positions already with the super big.
I love it. You've seen organizations doing that already. That's awesome.
And they're doing that, maybe related to gaming and stuff like that. But I think what we can all agree on, and it responds one of the questions in the chat from Deborah, is crypto, NFTs, all of this is nice, is most probably a significant part of the future, but right now the usability is horrible. Getting into it, like for most of your donors or most of your constituents, it's probably not there. So I don't know that you would need to like tell everybody to embrace this right now, or else you're losing out on money. But it's kind of part of that. Well, you need to be open, looking at things. The web wasn't a big thing in the 90s, and look at it now. So
I think a lot of it, Lewis, is really just, if you can accept and cash in right now.
Well, that's
the important part, right? Very similar to to any type of stock donations, right? Like you don't have to keep it, you don't have to speculate on it. Like, as long as you have the ability to accept and cash out, that's what you need at this point. Although that will change.
And I do know that that's driving a lot of the influx of money into donor advised funds right now, because they do accept that. And lots of people who want to give to a nonprofit have money in crypto, and they're putting it there. And I don't know if this means that nonprofits should tell their donors, if you're interested, go to a DAF and then give it back to us in cash, or something like that. Another idea, that's kind of the community building idea. That's my thing lately, is how to find people in your database that are interested in crypto. And I think LinkedIn is a great place to do that if you can delimit them in some way. Like if you're, it's easier if you're a school and you can look up your alums who have Web3, Bitcoin in their profiles. Have you come up with any other kind of smart ways, holding webinars like this one, for your nonprofit on these topics? Could be a great way to identify people too. Kirk is laughing. Maybe you need to go on like a Discord and
like all that popped into my head is get everybody has an address when, like, if you have crypto, you're going to have an address on whatever network it is, which is also a token.
Mhm.
And like all of a sudden I had this vision of, that when people send out mailings and they send like a nickel along with it, and like now all of a sudden I'm envisioning charities grabbing addresses from people and then sending what is equivalent of a nickel to try to get a donation, like having this weird thought of
Well,
like,
this is part of the usability. If you want to own crypto, you need a wallet. And a wallet is identified by a really long sequence. And lots of people get locked out of their wallets for good or lose their wallets, or it's just nuts. But that was Kirk was referring to. And I know, talking about everybody having an address, I know Joel Rivera, who was on the chat earlier, actually has it on his LinkedIn profile. Oh, airdrops. So it's joelrivera.ef. I don't know what that is, but it sounds crypto-ish. Maybe he'll explain it to us. So anyhow, let's go on to the next topic, which is, okay, so we have a system that nobody owns that it's kind of as if, a bank has a spreadsheet and says, this person owes this amount of stock, that person owes that amount of stock. Well, imagine that spreadsheet was kind of distributed, everywhere. Nobody really owns it. So it's much harder to make errors and to falsify and to things like that. So you have this kind of a really powerful system that we've been using, not as we were talking for cryptocurrencies, so like for Bitcoin and just kind of exchanging coins of something. But now people are thinking about using that infrastructure for other things. And sometimes that's called an NFT or a smart contract. Somebody give me the lay of the land here, because it's complicated.
Yeah. Kirk, do you want to define NFT and how that's different than crypto? I have a lot to say. NFT is more what I am jazzed about. So maybe you set it up, Kirk, and then I'll talk about, I see Mike's question about preserving or cultural preservation. I want to hit that. So.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll kind of start off with this. So what we are doing with computing is doing what's called a hashing algorithm. And all this does is takes any piece of data, whether it's super large, super small, and turning it into a fixed length binary sequence, effectively. And so we've been doing this in cryptography for years. This is how we do password management. This is how we encrypt things. This is how the internet works. The internet started on quite a lot of MD5, which is now very broken, and has moved to new hashing algorithms that basically protect, like, all of your HTTPS, all of your security passwords. Everything is based on this idea of hashes. So if you're really interested in mathematics, like, that's where you go. The token, the idea of a token is effectively taking whatever data you've put in and hashing it so that it has this, I will call, unique address. There exists the possibility of what we call a collision, which is two items having the same address. The odds of that happening are astronomical. So it's not something you really have to worry about at this point. But effectively, that tokenization is just running whatever it is through that hashing algorithm, and it gives it this unique property, this unique name, effectively. Very similar to a physical address, you have a uniqueness to that. So anything can be turned into this as long as you can start with a data set. So where I've talked about the value of tokenization has been like wills and last testaments. Because what you could do is you could take your will, convert it into the digital format, so in Word or whatever, tokenize it, and then people can confirm whether or not they have a copy of your latest will without knowing what actually is in the will. And so you create this tokenization. So the whole idea of NFTs is taking something that's not financial in its basis, which is crypto or cryptocurrency, and you're tokenizing it, and you're just giving it this unique property so that you can refer to it constantly on the blockchain. And then what that looks like, I will leave that more for Aubrey.
All right. Okay. Thank you for that explainer. So I would summarize by saying if crypto is the currency, then NFT is the product. And so now we have a currency to pay for a product, which gives us a marketplace. This is how I think about it now. And so, in just the way that in the physical world, visual art, I think, is a easier example, and then I'll get into performing art options for product here. But in the same way, we have an original painting, for example. How do we know that that's real by the original artist? Some certificate of authenticity, right? So, and then also other buyers could have a print or reproduction of that and pay less because it's not the original. Like we see this, for years and years and years in the physical arts world. Okay, so to put that in terms of crypto and NFTs, any asset can be made digital, right? We know we can have a digital version of a piece of art. We can have a digital version of a musical recording, right? So anything that can be made digital, that becomes what we're able to sell as this product. And as Kirk was saying, NFT, so non-fungible token, the token is the certificate of authenticity. And the great thing about digital, and this is where it is far superior to the physical execution of this, is that is attached. That token certificate of authenticity is attached to the digital product, inextricable. So there is never, ever, ever any question, is this real? Is this fake? Is this authentic? Is it not? Like we know this happens sometimes in the art world. A painting is discovered in somebody's attic, and is it real? Is it not? Is it Van Gogh? Is it not? Like, didn't that literally just happen within the last year, right? None of that is of question. So two things I want to say with that baseline to take it forward. One, to Mike's question, could NFTs be considered a form of cultural preservation? A form, absolutely, because that authenticity is attached to whatever that digital product offering is. So 100%, that's like preservation. So I love that question and love that use case for NFTs. The other thing I want to say on this, when I think about what is a like practical use case for arts organizations and other nonprofits and other spaces, I'll try to sort of riff on like some assets you all have too, because I know we're talking to more than just arts people today. But when I think of the recording industry, for example, this starts to directly intersect our performing arts industries. How have we typically released recordings, right? Like first it was a record, then it was a CD, and then the evolution became digital, or I guess cassette tapes are in there somewhere, right? So we know that the recording industry has been completely disrupted. We know that now when we release recordings, we're not making a ton of money on CD sales or record sales. We know that when we release any type of digital musical product, we got to put it on streaming service platforms, right? And we know that we make fractions of a penny for any single stream that we have. And we do not, most arts organizations do, even the biggest ones in the world, do not have the kind of scale to actually be making significant profit on this. And so this is important because what used to be a reasonable sort of media check or media payment that would come to artists has been completely disrupted by the record industry. We know this. This is not just classical music. This is all genres. Okay. So where I think NFTs get interesting is being able to release a digital product. And what happens is it takes out the middleman. So record company or record label, bye-bye. And that giant cut, Spotify, bye-bye. And so there's, first of all, just a bigger piece of the pie that then gets distributed to the owners of the NFT. Who are the owners? Well, in this example I'm giving, it's the artists themselves and it's the organization, the orchestra, opera company, ballet company, whoever's releasing this digital asset. So I'll get off like this long-winded answer in just a moment. But to wrap this up, I would say this token on the back end, this gets into smart contracts, another vocabulary word as part of all of this, bakes in who gets money from the sale. So for me in the arts world, this is so helpful because there's no debate over who gets paid what. You, in the same way you would negotiate a contract in the physical world, you would negotiate that contract. The artists are making X percent, the organization is making Y percent. That's baked into the back end. So when this transaction happens, it's done and it's instantaneous, pretty much, that money going to those people who deserve that money. So I start to put all this together, cultural preservation, taking out the middleman, more money into the pockets of artists and the organizations producing these works. And I just think, I don't know, again, it's the Wild West, it's new technology. I'm not putting all my eggs in this basket, but I am so captivated by this as a way to, I don't know, make more money in a legit way for the artists doing this work. So, okay, that's a lot, but that's where I get excited about NFTs.
Hey, I have a question. Kirk, were you going to say something?
Yeah, well, if I could riff on that a little bit, thinking about other charities and what we traditionally do from a fundraising standpoint, think about philanthropic inventory. So naming rights.
Yes.
Right. So if you think about this in terms of, if you want to name, I'll say a university, like you want to name the School of Business. It's going to cost you a certain amount of money. You can bake into that the smart contract so that if that naming right is ever sold, if one organization buys it, that it's the Kirk Schmidt School of Business, and then I decide later that I want to sell that, I don't want to support the charity anymore, I can sell it, maybe make make a bid off of it. You could bake into the smart contracts, a certain amount goes to the seller because they did own it, a certain amount goes to the charity because there's of course going to be a all sorts of work in terms of rebranding and putting up new naming and all of that, right? Like you can build all of that into the smart contract, but you effectively can build a marketplace for naming rights. One of the big things in Calgary here is the Calgary Stampede, which is one of the biggest rodeos in the world. And they're every year we have the tent auction for the chuck wagons, and it's a big way for oil companies to, or well, not just oil companies, but being Calgary, it's mostly oil companies, to kind of bid and have their name on this asset. And quite often it is used as a litmus test into how is the Calgary economy doing. Being able to create that in an NFT space and being able to have those smart contracts so that money goes where it needs to, and you create this open market is a really interesting place for NFT for sure.
Awesome.
Naming rights. Oh my gosh. And I just want to say, just to underscore this smart contract attached to the token, when that resale happens, the organization gets money again. Like it's all baked into that. So that to me is brilliant. Like now I think I'm like, my mind is exploding right now, like capital campaign. And you can then like resell naming rights again. And it hasn't been 30 years later or whatever. Like, anyways, I think that is brilliant.
So Kirk and I kind of chat on LinkedIn all the time in the background, and he kind of inspired an idea. And I just posted the link in the chat where I actually sold the naming rights as an NFT to my desk at work. And for all the masses that are dying and knocking the door down, please, this has been discontinued. This is no longer available to the general public. But I think the essence is that we're going to hear about NFTs at work and fundraising, like in a very narrow sense of some kind of, can I donate my ape to you? That's worth kind of in that very sense that I have a collectible NFT and I want to donate it, but the underlying concept is really powerful, and there's possibly, almost definitely ways to use it that are going to change a lot about how we work. It looks like some really good questions are coming in the chat. Let me see. Do any of you want to take any of them before I get to them?
One thing I would just probably say, because I feel like I can tie the two last questions together a little bit. The thing to be careful of is the reason this works is because of the network that it exists on. So you could effectively create, because quite often they're using the same hashing algorithms on multiple things. Anyways, you could effectively put an NFT on multiple chains at once, and I mean it's going to devalue it quickly. So I would not recommend doing that. But there is also this part of like, let's say the Ethereum network collapsed, or I don't remember. There was a coin based on a TV show,
I
like a
don't know.
Netflix show
Oh,
that,
well, the dogs.
um,
There's a dog coin, but there's Polygon too.
yeah,
Another.
like there have been some that basically like somebody created it, people put money in, and then there was a fraudulent, like they took the money out, and the network effectively disappeared. So I think, like, in terms of creating proprietary cryptocurrency, in terms of like where should you um, put this transaction so that it lives on forever, like there are some considerations with that too. And this kind of goes to what Aubrey was saying early on, that like this is still new, we're still learning some things.
Exactly.
um, there are some implicit dangers with this. So I think in terms of shorter term, like the Ethereum network's going to probably be around for a little bit. Um, there's some more short term things. As you're starting to think long term, where you're starting to think about creating cryptocurrencies, like there are some roadblocks. I'm not saying don't. I'm just saying do a lot more research into some of that, because there are some potential pitfalls coming.
And we know Kirk has a vested interest in Ethereum, which he showed us. So it's all fully disclosed today. Please, everything here is above board. I do have a comment for Mike about arts. Maybe I'm thinking more about artists, and I'm thinking about creator coins, which is another really interesting way. There's a platform called Rally. I've seen some of the kind of thought leaders here on LinkedIn use them. We have Mark Schaefer. I've seen Joe Pulizzi do their own coins, which is kind of creating your own, economic ecosystem, which is essentially just another turn of the screw. So using the same infrastructure, why would everybody need to do Bitcoins? You can do your own currency for your own artists, for your community, and try to, essentially think of the system to make that valuable. So, and goes back to Kirk's initial comment about, this is kind of driven by awareness, by, you actually have to have a market. You have to build a market for these things. But that's another area. I don't know if we have time to go into that today, but people are doing really smart stuff there too. Aubrey, have you seen people do like cool stuff with their creator coins? Not yet, no?
No is the answer. That doesn't mean it's not happening. I just don't know of examples of arts organizations. And I was thinking about this question, Mike, like what would be the value of an organization creating their own currency? I don't know. Lewis and Kirk, please weigh in, because what comes to my mind, so I can be challenged on this, but what comes to my mind is that feels like a lot of work, and I don't understand the benefit. Not that there's no benefit. I just am trying to think, like, is the juice worth the squeeze to create a currency versus creating a product in a marketplace that already exists? To me, that feels more palatable, and by palatable, I mean potentially lucrative. But I don't know. And my understanding is not full and complete on this topic. So chime in, please, guys.
I feel like it comes down to usage, right? Like, if there is a specific use case for having a specific currency that is used a specific way, currency might make sense. And of course, I'm no futurist, so there might be things I'm not thinking of. But like when I think of coins that have been created that have been for more proprietary things, I mean, like I know this is all charity, so I apologize for speaking of this, but there are coins for pornography. And so but like there's kind of, you can understand why that would exist in terms of the decentralization, the anonymity, right? Like there are reasons why things like that exist. There have been attempts with things that are specifically for charity, but I think that the thing that you run into that's a problem is the valuation, because the question would become, why does somebody want a coin? because you need to give value to this, right? You need to give value to the ownership of this. And if the only, like, this has been my problem with a coin designed only for charities, is why would I want to spend money to buy this to just give to charities? Like
As a
that. And
consumer, why would you want to do
yeah,
that?
and
Yes,
and s-
totally
and
with
so
you.
I think
Yeah.
if you want the coin to have appropriate valuation, you want it on an open system. Um, whether it's Bitcoin and that. I actually just want to point out, somebody said something about Bitcoin NFTs, which I find interesting, because Bitcoin, as much as it is the original, um, it does not have a lot of the things that a lot like the Ethereum forks do. So a fork is when you take the code and you blast it off into different directions and change it. A lot of more modern crypto is based on Ethereum forks, and it's because Ethereum allowed for the possibility of smart contracts. Um, so just like, be careful with, again, with coins and what they can do and can't do, because as different coins have been created, they've enabled other opportunities. So Bitcoin NFTs might not do some of the same things um, that things based on Ethereum forks are. Sorry, just side comment, but I
No,
noticed that.
point of clarification though on this. So tell me if this is correct, Kirk. If you as an organization produce, or anybody produce an NFT for sale, any crypto could buy that NFT, right? It doesn't, like, you don't make an NFT and say this is specifically to be sold or purchased by a Bitcoin, right? It's like,
You can bridge from one currency to another, and
So
then eventually get
yes,
everything you need.
so there are exchange markets. Like that, this is really important to understand, that there are physical companies that do exchanges that do have to have some level of assets in order to perform these exchanges. Um, you can pay for NFTs with any currency, as long as you're doing it through an appropriate exchange.
right, that's what I,
But
okay.
but the NFT itself has to exist on a single chain. Um, right?
Okay.
And so and if it exists in multiple chains, then effectively you have two genuine products that are the same thing,
Okay,
which
that's important
goes
to
to
clarify.
devaluation.
Yes, understood. Okay, got it.
Oh boy. Well, my head is going to explode. I have one final thought and a question for you. If it feels to me, okay, like if we're decentralizing, if we're in some way taking power away from a central organization or authority, we're seeing this with artists, that they're building their own markets and their own crypto coin currency, things, and NFTs, all of that. Could this happen to nonprofits in some way? Because it seems to be kind of the underlying philosophy, which is we don't trust institutions. Um, I don't know. That in the cards? No idea. Nobody knows. We're not futurists for sure. But that's just something that
Yeah.
came to mind.
I mean, it is interesting if we're going back to like building out the profile of a potential donor in this space,
Hmm.
somebody who has a proclivity to not trust institutions, this would be a solution for that type of person.
And you always need, right? I think that know-how, that level of institutional know-how and experience, and everything can't be really one-to-one. But that is a really good thought. So you have to kind of position it as something that lives in the institution, but maybe is a little bit separate.
And
Um,
and one thing to consider is whether or not that does longer term damage as well, right? Like, um, uh, what is it? The state's Charity Navigator, who basically started this idea of overhead, the damage they have
I was going to
done
say that
to
is
the.
so, these watchdog groups are so damaging. This is a whole, oh my God,
Yeah,
schedule another
but
hour for us,
okay,
Lewis.
okay.
Let's,
but there's
Well,
there's
in the
there's kind of
chat,
this
let us know
level
when
of.
you're available.
Yeah, there's kind of this level of if we allow the democratization, or I shouldn't say allow, but if the democratization happens, where people can basically run charities from a decentralized system,
Mhm.
do we suffer the same problems we have with overhead, where people simply believe, well, why would I pay a fundraiser $120,000 a year, when people should just be volunteering and doing it for free, right? Like, do we cause damage that way too? So
Lots of food for thought. So
Right, yeah, we're ending on a very philosophical, existential.
This is
point
so
here.
powerful. I feel like I don't know, the kind of a spiritual moment here with Kirk and Aubrey. But folks who are on the chat and who have been joining us today, we want to hear from you. Please say hi before you leave. But please do connect with Aubrey. Connect with Kirk right here on LinkedIn. It's amazing what they put out, and I learn from them every day. So, and they actually respond to your messages if you have a question, if you know something about work. That will be a great next step. It so happens that both of them are presenting at a small conference we're putting on that involves most every person I admire in the sector. So starting April 22, let me put the link on here on the screen. And it's kind of like this is a horrible advertisement, but you don't have any excuse to not join, because we have scholarships, because it's practical, interesting, and about meeting people, not just sitting in a webinar. So we hope to see you there. Thank you. Aubrey, Kirk, any parting words?
Just to also say thanks for tuning in. I know we had trouble at the very beginning getting the stream and going, and like there's a good group here, and I'm just so glad everybody was participatory. It just makes it so much better to have interaction. So this was fun. Thank you, Louis, for setting it all up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Louis, and it's nice to meet you, Aubrey, and hopefully we can do more of these in the future.
Awesome. Cool. Next one on charity watchdogs. It's a deal.